One day, Edward was in the shed where he lived with the other engines. They were all bigger than him, except for Thomas, who was obviously smaller, and James, who was about his size. Anyway, the actual big engines enjoyed teasing Edward. The driver won't choose you today, said Gordon. He wants strong engines like us. Hello, Edward, said the driver. I'm choosing you today. Edward was very pleased, while Gordon was very ticked off. I'm very ticked off, he exclaimed. Why on earth would the driver pick you and not me? Perhaps because you killed several passengers recently, Edward retorted. Oh, right. Wait, did you actually forget you did that? Come along, Edward, said the driver. We have work to do. So Edward puffed off to the station, deeply concerned by his colleague's poor memory. Edward worked hard all day, taking passengers up and down the line. They complimented him for a splendid job and were very grateful he didn't kill them. The driver was impressed by his performance and promised to take him out again tomorrow. The next morning, while Edward was getting ready, he noticed Gordon was gone. Suddenly, he heard screaming, and the big blue engine banged by with the express. Edward was mortified. That galloping sausage has stolen my train, he exclaimed. Come on, Edward, said the driver. Let's get after him. Ha-ha! Gordon hallooed. You can't catch me, little Edward. Wrong. That's impossible. How did you do that? Oh, there'll be plenty of time for explanation later. But right now, I'm going to whoop your tender. Well done, Edward, said the driver. When we get home, I'm going to give you a new coat of paint. Would you like that? Oh, yes, please. With that, Edward puffed happily back to the shed, leaving behind a very battered and bruised Gordon. So remember, boys and girls, violence solves everything. Once an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. It went into a tunnel and squeaked through its funnel and wouldn't come out again. That doesn't really sound right now that I say it out loud. The engine's name is Henry. His driver and fireman argued with him. What the are you doing, you? His driver exclaimed. The rain will spoil my green paint with red stripes, he replied. Are you kidding me? Before Henry could answer, he heard footsteps approaching from behind. He then remembered his boss had been traveling on his train. This stout gentleman was Sir Topham Hatt, better known as the Fat Controller. The Fat what? Nope, I got nothing. Sorry I had to find out this way, Fatso. Oh, thank you very much. The Fat Controller waddled towards the front of the train. 5 hours later, he arrived. Damn, bruh, you only walked like 30 meters. You are really out of shape. Sod off. Literally, I want you to sod off out of this tunnel. No, he protested. The rain will spoil my lovely green paint with red stripes. Are you kidding me? Does it look like I'm kidding you? The pair stared at each other. The Fat Controller was the first to look away, but only because he was deep in thought about how to rectify the situation. He then came up with a perfect solution. With an evil glint in his eye, he turned back towards the stubborn engine. It was then that Henry realized he up. Later on at the sheds, the other engines were waiting for Henry to return. When he didn't, they were very concerned. I'm very concerned, said Edward. Where could he be? Here, said a voice. All eyes turned towards the source. It was Thomas. He had arrived with several trucks filled with scrap. The others were horrified as the meaning of his words sank in. That's Henry? Gordon asked concernedly. Indeed it is, the Fat Controller boasted. I wasn't about to let him block the main line, so I settled for scrapping him. With all due respect, sir, Edward began, how is killing one of your engines a good idea? Who said he was dead? What are you saying, sir? Watch and wonder. Gentlemen, get to work. Henry? Despite his recent conduct with the Express, for whatever reason, the Fat Controller still allowed Gordon to take it. The passengers were very wary, but the Big Blue engine's behavior had improved dramatically. He was efficient, punctual, and considerate. He also loved flying down the line at top speed. I'm the fastest engine in the world, he proclaimed. Nothing can stop me. I should have seen that coming. Do I want to know what happened? Edward asked. My safety valve burst, Gordon replied. This is so embarrassing and very inconvenient, the Fat Controller snapped. I never like these big engines, always causing problems. Perhaps you could replace me with a donkey, sir, Gordon sneered. Don't tempt me. Edward, you'll have to take the Express the rest of the way. I'd love to, sir, but I don't think I'm strong enough to pull this many coaches. I know you're not. Shut up, Gordon. Give it a crack, Edward. And he did. The old engine puffed with all his might, but didn't get very far. Gee, what a shock. Shut up, Gordon. Bother. I guess we'll have to call in Henry. What on earth was that? Well, sir, Gordon began, Henry was immensely traumatized by what you did to him last week. So much so that he now screams at random intervals. It's very annoying. All right, we'll deal with that later. But now, Edward, you and Henry will have to take the Express to its final destination. Yes, sir. Needless to say, the rest of the journey was not a pleasant one. Although they made good time, Henry's random screaming made the trip an ordeal for Edward and the passengers. When it was over, Henry retreated to the shed and was somehow able to curl up in the fetal position. In light of this, the Fat Controller realized he had to do something. Henry, would you like some drugs? Yes, sir. Please, sir. Okay, here you go. Some special coal just for you. Thank you, sir. Just like that, he was right as rain. So the moral of the story is, all pain can be cured with drugs. Thomas the tank engine was grumbling to the other engines. Grumble, grumble, grumble. What is it, little Thomas? Gordon asked. It's not fair, he began. How come I have to spend my time pulling coaches about just so you lot can take them on journeys? Because you're a shunter, Thomas, Edward pointed out. It's literally your job. Well, I'm sick of it. I want to get out and see the world. Do you have any idea how boring it gets being stuck in the same place? That would actually be pretty annoying, Henry concurred. Perhaps we should let the little fellow take one of our trains on occasion. I have a better idea, Gordon began. How about we don't? And why not? You're too impatient. You're bound to leave something behind. Like what? The entire train? I don't think so. All right, little Thomas. If you're so sure you can pull passenger trains, you can take the Express tomorrow. Really? You're not having me on, are you? No. By all means. Have at it. Okay, I will. And you'll see how a real engine handles passengers. The next morning, Thomas couldn't leave the shed fast enough. He collected the coaches and brought them to the platform. In no time at all, he was off. He was delighted by this change in routine and scenery. He got to see parts of the island he never knew existed. He arrived at the first station ahead of schedule. Edward was very impressed. I'm very impressed, he began. Even Gordon never arrives this early. I guess he just doesn't know how to properly handle passengers, Thomas boasted. Thomas, where are your passengers? They're in the coaches. No, they're not. Thomas was horrified to discover Edward was right. His coaches were completely empty. He then realized after he brought them to the platform, he hadn't actually stayed long enough for anyone to get on board. Thoroughly humiliated, Thomas slunk back to the big station. When he arrived, he not only found angry passengers, but a very amused Gordon. Well, well, little Thomas, he began. I now see the proper way to handle passengers is to not deal with them. Brilliant! The passengers got on board and Thomas departed. Though he was very late arriving at each station, he nonetheless did well. Even so, the Fat Controller decided to not put him on any more passenger trains for the foreseeable future. That night at the shed, it was only he and Gordon. The big blue engine made the mistake of teasing his colleague. The next morning, Gordon was found in a ditch. Nobody knows how it happened, and he never told, but he made sure to never tease Thomas again. Thomas the tank engine wouldn't stop being a despite his blunder with the Express. He still went on and on about how he never got to see the world. His constant whining was starting to get on everyone's nerves. He's worse than a social media activist, Henry whispered. Indeed, Edward replied. We need to find a way to placate him, and I have just the thing. Thomas, how would you like to take my goods train tomorrow? I wouldn't. Why not? I don't want to pull trucks. They're horrible things. Oh, for the love of Thomas, stop being a and show some gratitude that I'm giving you this opportunity, you little. Okay, Thomas said meekly. Thank you, Edward. The next morning, Thomas went off to fetch his trucks. Now, trucks are spiteful, horrid, and troublesome things. Hey, they don't like being bugged about, and they certainly don't like the engines. Thomas knew this, but he was in a foul mood and simply didn't care. He biffed and bashed them about as he assembled his train. By the time it was ready, the trucks were very ticked off at Thomas. We're very ticked off at you, Thomas, they shouted. We don't want to go out with you. Oh, yeah? How about now? Never mind. Good call. Come along. All right, don't fuss. Thomas made good time as he barreled down the line. While the trucks behaved, they were silently seething. They started whispering amongst themselves and decided if Thomas was willing to go gangster, then so would they. At the end of the journey, Thomas shunted his train into a siding. His trucks were now surrounded by dozens of others. They told their homies what had happened, and they were appalled. Such an affront to the gang could not be tolerated. So, while Thomas was taking on water, the trucks surrounded him and gave him a proper beatdown. The Fat Controller arrived to find Thomas in a battered state. Well, little Thomas, he began, it seems you still have a lot to learn about trucks. Yes, sir, Thomas began. Like how the were they able to move without an engine?
We've been making the Timberland boat shoes since 1978. I like to think of the shoe itself as a piece of art.
Thomas was very ticked off. He had wanted to get his own back at the truck since they gave him a beatdown, and he did. He bumped and biffed them around the yard. Sometimes he thrashed them a little too hard. The first time he did that, he was introduced to a very unusual set of cranes. That's the breakdown train, his driver told him. It's used to lift heavy things like engines and coaches and the Fat Controller's wife, and little like this lot, Thomas added with a sneer. During one of these recovery operations, Thomas heard the sound of an approaching goods train. He barely had time to blink before the engine rocketed past. The engine's name was James, and he was always boasting about his splendid red paint and amazing speed. The latter he liked to put to the test, even when hauling dangerous cargo. Not long after thundering by, James had a spectacular crash off screen. Oh, bother, Thomas exclaimed. Why is there never a cameraman around when you need him? I know, said his driver. I mean, grab the breakdown train. We need to help him. Thomas was coupled up and took off as fast as he could. Hello, busted boiler. Holy you took your time, you slow. Note to self, don't tick off those who are trying to help you. James was glad to be back on the rails following his accident, although the Fat Controller was annoyed it happened in the first place. James, he began, you need to be careful. Speeding is unacceptable and dangerous. That's different. If you say so, sir, James replied. What's my job today? You'll be pulling passenger trains. Now see those coaches? Those are as fragile as a modern-day feminist, so handle them with care or I'm going to have you executed. Understood, sir. With great care and trepidation, James backed down onto the coaches. He buffered up to them ever so delicately. All was well, until they burst into flames. Oh, bother. James was waiting anxiously in the shed. His first attempt at pulling coaches had literally gone up in flames. Given what the Fat Controller had told him beforehand, his fate was likely sealed. Oh dear, he groaned. I will surely be executed, and no one will ever see my lovely red paint again. The Fat Controller soon arrived. Don't worry, James, he began. What happened with the coaches wasn't your fault. It wasn't, sir, James replied. Then what happened? Spontaneous combustion. Oh, okay then. So, what happens now? Well, I can't put you on passenger duty, so for the time being, you'll handle trucks. Oh, wacko. James was rightly concerned. He knew as well as any engine how troublesome trucks could be, and they would surely give him grief for what happened with the coaches, which they did. Hey, check this out, lads. One of them began. The firebug's taking us out. The trucks giggled in their silly way. James was annoyed but undeterred. He set off with his train. Unfortunately, the journey wasn't uneventful. The trucks would slip on their brakes and their axles would overheat, causing the train to stop. Despite these setbacks, James was still able to reach his destination, but he was very annoyed at the trucks. I'm very annoyed at you trucks, he snapped. And what are you going to do about it? They retorted. I'm going to burn you to a crisp. You wouldn't I? James burned the little blighters to ash. Although the Fat Controller wasn't happy about the destruction of railway property, he was glad James had put to the torch the most troublesome trucks on the line. Well done, James, he complimented. From now on, whenever the trucks give us grief, we'll burn them alive. How about when they don't give us grief, sir? James asked. Now you're just being psychotic. Sorry, sir. One night, the engines were resting in the shed after a hard day's work. James was very happy. The Fat Controller said he's going to let me pull the Express soon, he proclaimed. All the engines were happy for James, except Gordon, of course. Stuff and nonsense, he snorted. Why would the Fat Controller give my job to a pyromaniac? Because I've never killed any passengers. Touché. The next morning, James was doing odd jobs around the yard, but he stopped to watch the Express leave. Goodbye, little James, Gordon called. See you tomorrow. Huh? What just happened? I don't know. Let's try that again. What in blazes? The Fat Controller soon appeared. Gordon, what on earth is happening? You should have left already. I tried, sir, Gordon replied. But every time I do, I end up back here. Watch. See? Bother. The game must be glitching. Perhaps we should try swapping out engines to see if that helps. James, you're up. James was very excited and was quickly coupled up to the coaches. The guard blew his whistle and the red engine was off. He made good time running down the line. Fields and stations flew by. James was enjoying himself immensely, and despite all the delays, he was somehow able to reach his final destination ahead of schedule. The passengers were very pleased with his performance and thanked him profusely. At least, that's what was supposed to happen. That did happen. But in reality, the moment James departed, he experienced another glitch and wound up in the river. Wait, what? You enjoy tormenting us, don't you? Yeah, kinda. Rotten swine.